Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Bourbon Bikes and Business with Hank and Blaise. We have an exciting show for you today. We're going to be talking about a myriad of topics. The first topic we're going to be talking about, Elmer T. Lee, ETL, the Buffalo Trace, one of the big bad daddies. Is it worth the secondary price that you're probably going to have to pay? I'm going to do a little taste test. I'm going to tell you that immediately. The second thing we're going to be talking about, we're going to get into some bike topics today. We're going to be talking about Chinese bike parts, whether they're really worth the risk, worth the price, and whether the value is there. I know, Blaise, one of your favorite topics we go back and forth on all the time. The last topic, we're going to be talking about domestic oil production. I know, very exciting, but how that affects the prices of everyday goods and the inflation that we're experiencing, and maybe what can be done about it. So, cool. 3 huge topics today. Blaise, how are you feeling?
I'm great today. Well rested up.
That's it?
It's not nighttime, and we're not on our 5th session here, so I'm
okay,
great.
Well, exciting news for everyone is the second episode's just about to go up at the time of this recording. So, first episode, I think, was a success. I think we can say that. Yep. Second episode is going to be hilarious as well. And we'll see how this third one goes. Who knows?
Yep.
All right.
We added music to that second podcast, so we got some crazy music. Okay,
so a little spice to it.
Yep.
All right. So what are you drinking today, Blaise?
I went back to my standby. Old Foresters. I got to show you something interesting, though. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this. This is my porch.
Oh, yeah.
Draw.
I have seen those glasses online. Are they nice? They hold that well?
Yeah, although this cigar is a little tight in there. I found you got to go a little bit smaller. I like some big cigars, but
that's what she said.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you,
how about you?
Have you actually tried that glass while smoking the cigar while it's been lit?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you're still allowed to talk about it with all your appendages. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Usually it's my fall kind of thing. I get out in the porch in the fall and even into the winter. Good.
It's a great time to get out there. Yep. I find actually when I want to smoke a cigar outside, if it's summertime and like 90 degrees, I do not want to do it. It's just too hot for me. Fall time when it's cooler outside, it's also a much better time for bourbon for me as well. But
true. Whatever.
So today, the reason why I asked you first what you're drinking is because what I'm drinking is actually our first topic of the day. And like I told you before we actually started recording the show, my opinion of this might have changed in like the last 2 minutes or last 10 minutes, whatever it's been. So let's just explore it. Let's jump to the chase here. What we're going to be talking about today is one of those much coveted, high-priced secondary items that people search long and far for, I guess you could say. This is the ETL, the Elmer T. Lee, okay? So this is one of those allocated bottles that are out there that you rarely find in your liquor store. The suggested retail price of this bottle is $40. So like so many other bourbons out there that have just gotten wildly popular.
I thought it was a lot more than that.
No, the original MSRPs on a lot of these bourbons are like dirt cheap, $25 to $50. But then between the fact that you can't find them and the whole bourbon thing has just gotten totally out of control, now you almost have to buy it on secondary. Sometimes you get lucky. But that secondary pricing is between about $200 and $350 for this bottle. Yeah. And so the question is...
I got company. Mine's sleeping right now. She won't get off till later. We have our first guest.
Okay, for those listening on the podcast right now, instead of viewing the video, my cat Woody just jumped up and said hello.
It's great.
Yeah, it's something else. So, in any event, I was talking about Elmer T.
5 minutes later.
Anyway.
Apologies to all the viewers out there for my cat's rear end.
Elmer T. Who?
So Elmer T. Lee. So it's very hard to find, even on the secondary market. I know to get my bottle, I had to go through kind of a questionable source. Had to meet a guy in a parking lot late at night to get my bottle. I think what I paid was $2.25 for it. And so I was really excited for the taste, but I don't know that everyone's going to love it. And often if you see the reviews online, it doesn't always have great reviews. So let me tell you a little bit about this. So Elmer T. Lee is one of the Buffalo Trace single barrels aged between 9 and 14 years.
Wow.
And when I was researching this today, I was actually shocked by the fact that apparently it's the same recipe as Blanton's, which I really like.
Oh, really?
And Rock Hill Farms, which this show already knows is my favorite bourbon.
Oh, thanks for letting me test that last week. That is really good.
Yeah, I know you liked it too. So here's the thing. I'm going to try it right now for you. Let's toast.
Toast.
So this is my Elmer T. Lee. That's your Old Forester. And tell you my initial impressions. All right, so it's the same thing as I tasted a while. So my initial pour, as a recap, I was really disappointed with it. It's a little bit better now. Like I said to you before the show, I might actually be changing my mind on it, but I'm not. So I take that back too.
Have you had this before? Have you ever had this before?
I've had a few glasses. Most of them have been the neck pours.
Do they vary in flavor?
It's a single barrel. It's a single barrel, so every bottle is going to be a little different. Right. And you can see I'm just beyond the neck pour. So maybe it was a neck pour thing, but I'm still getting the fact that when you first take your sip of this Elmer T. Lee, it sits on your tongue like water. It's just water. There's no taste to it, no spice to it, at least that I'm getting.
Really? It's
now,
not that exciting.
On the finish, on the back end, there is a little bit of spice that you taste. It does give you a little bit of heat on the back end. But so right now, I'm just going to have a little sip of water. What I have in this glass, for scientific purposes, of course.
Now, what's the proof on this bottle?
So the Elmer T. Lee is 90 proof. The Blanton's that I'm about to test, also a single barrel, also Buffalo Trace single barrel. Like I said, same recipe. This is 93 proof. So, slightly higher proof, but not crazy. So exactly. So when this hits your tongue, you get sweet, you get vanilla, you get honey, you get a little bit of fruit, like an apple fruit, just a lot more complex flavor, complex notes, sweet notes, and then you get the same kind of spice on the back end as you get with the Elmer T. Lee. But that initial sip and the front end of the Elmer T. Lee I'm just going to say it, especially for the money, is incredibly disappointing. It literally tastes like water. There is no flavor to it. And that's your first experience with it. And I'm beyond the neck pour now. So I think, now again, it's a single barrel. So every bottle is different. Maybe this was a bad bottle but if you look at the reviews online, I think this is pretty consistent with the reviews, at least in terms of it being disappointing for the money. Now, if you can find the bottle for the MSRP, for the $40,
that's worth
maybe
trying. Yeah.
But now I spent my hard-earned money so that our viewers didn't have to. You can see right here is the spot on my shelf where it goes.
Right.
And it will be sitting there for a long while. You can see right here is the Rock Hill Farms, and I'm going through that pretty quickly.
I'll come back looking for that one.
Exactly. And even the Blantons, which secondary you're going to be paying maybe $90 or $100, $80, depending. MSRP on the Blantons, I think, is like 50 or 60, maybe just a tad higher. But for that money, I would much rather have the Blantons. And plus, you get the collectible horsey head, which I'm building up my collection here.
Now, they had Blantons at my favorite online shopping store that we're exploring.
Hey, why don't you tell everyone about your favorite online shopping experience lately, Blaise?
So I placed an order at this company. So Facebook popped up, and I'm like, should I try that or not? But the prices were too good.
Their Facebook ads are always incredibly credible and reliable.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Glenn's Barrels. This is the name of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I placed this order for 3 bottles of pretty good stuff. And
why don't you tell them about the prices you paid?
I don't even remember. They were like 35, 45, 55, I think, for each of the bottles. They were very reasonable for like Buffalo Trace and
very reasonable.
Very, very reasonable, right? But like I showed you yesterday, they had Pappy that you said was in line with normal pricing. So
it was roughly like a 15-year Pappy. They wanted $11.50.
Right.
If you paid secondary for a 15-year Pappy,
right,
you're probably north of $1,500.
Right.
But it wasn't that much different. But here's what makes me skeptical, is that and I made this mistake once too, because I found a site that was selling Pappy for like $300 or something like that, and I jumped on it, knowing I bought it through my PayPal, knowing I had the security of I can cancel and get my money back through PayPal.
Right.
But it was a rough go, and sure enough, it was not good. But so it seems to me that they're on to the fact that if you try to sell that bottle of Pappy for $200, people are immediately going to know you're not legitimate and they're not going to buy.
Right, right.
But if you price it just enough below the going secondary rate, now I'm thinking the thought process is, oh, we can definitely get these people because they're going to think we're legitimate because it's just a little bit off.
Right.
So we'll have to see. It's what, due November 24th?
So here's the deal. I got a confirmation order right when I placed it. This was November 8th or something like that, or I can't remember. Then he said, so I emailed him 3 times in a couple different ways that I found an email address for info. Nobody responded. Tried a virtual chat, and said, we'll give you a live person. Nobody showed up. I'm like, this isn't good. Then, so yesterday I finally got an email response from the info at whatever, Glenn's Barrels. And they said, yes, we have your order. Should ship out on the 21st. You'll have it by the 24th. So I'm thinking 3 weeks, they're bankrolling my money, and maybe I'll get a bottle show up somewhere. So we shall see by Thanksgiving.
You're going to be, the least of your worries is that they're bankrolling your money for 3 weeks.
Yeah, really?
If that's the worst that happens, you've done well.
And I'm going to be in Massachusetts. I'm doing a road trip for a couple weeks, so my neighbor will be drinking it if it shows up, I guess. Anyway, so we'll see.
Yeah, well, good luck to you on that. Now, here's the thing. If it turns out to be legitimate, I'm going to be the first one on that site buying that Pappy, but we'll have to wait and see. All right. So somewhat along those lines, leading into our second conversation that is of a great subject of ours to talk about on our bike rides. Almost every bike ride we talk about it.
Always.
And that's these Chinese bike parts. Now, here's the thing. In my view, and this is Chinese bike parts you won't touch. You swear against them, right?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Clarify when you say Chinese bike parts. Can you
I'm getting into that.
You're going to break it down.
Okay. So now look, almost all bike parts are actually made in China. The ones that I'm talking about are the China. Yeah, right? The ones that I'm talking Taiwan to be clear. Okay. The ones that I'm talking about are not the Shimano's and SRAMs and Giants and Treks of the world, but the Chinese brand stuff. Okay. Now look. Here's the deal. This started maybe in 2010 in earnest. You started seeing a lot of these Chinese bike parts pop up. And I would say at the very beginning, yes, I agree. There wasn't much testing. They weren't doing a ton of R&D back then. They were just kind of kind of stealing the molds and making this stuff and then selling it. You didn't know what you were getting. But
quick story. I have a friend that worked with DeWalt Tools, and he told me he went to China. And this is a funny story. They had the factory there, DeWalt, in whatever the big Chinese company, or pollution's terrible and everybody makes all this stuff. But anyway, he said he went in there, they showed somebody a product, and he found out they were selling it 2 weeks later. They had duplicated their tools, and they were making knockoffs. 2 weeks later, the same product. It's amazing. So they're like masters of figuring stuff out, making it cheaper.
Yes, but as time has gone on, some of these brands have become so legitimate that they're actually knocked off by other Chinese companies that are just up and coming. So
Right.
you think of
Right.
the Far Sports, you think
Right.
of
Wheel sets. I know there's
Yo-Yo,
a lot of
you
wheel
think
set
of
companies.
WinSpace. Some of these companies have become incredibly legitimate, big-time companies that are actually themselves being palmed off by the smaller Asian outfitters there. So there are kind of two tiers of this stuff, but
Right.
I'm going to share with you my experience of the Chinese bike part industry going back all the way to 2010 to present, and then we'll get your view of things as well.
Sure.
So
Sure.
going back to that point, I have bought probably 5 or 6 different Chinese wheel sets from different manufacturers, both disc and rim. I have bought both mountain and road Chinese frames, carbon frames.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I have bought a lot of clothing from China as well. Okay.
And saddles. You're a saddle fanatic when it comes to Chinese saddles too,
Oh,
right?
the saddles are great, the carbon saddles, but those are less complex. Like there's really so I'm going to cover really more or less those 3 areas in my experience.
That's cool.
So let's start with the easiest first, is the clothing. Okay, so here's the deal with the clothing. With respect to all this, one, you have to go to a reliable distributor of this stuff, seller of this stuff. So usually,
where do you find that for Chinese apparel?
Yeah, usually I'll either go directly to the source, like Yolio.com or whatever the brand is, or I'll buy through Amazon, which I know Amazon carries with it sufficient protection. I can always return the stuff if I need to, whatever it is. So with clothing, I have bought a fair share straight from AliExpress, and it has been
AliExpress.
It has been underwhelming, to say the least. It is cheap and cheap. It is both inexpensive and cheaply made.
Poor quality, right? Yeah.
Now, I will use the stuff when I do an indoor trainer ride because, I just need a shirt on my back. It's not that big of a deal. But in terms of it being kind of winter grade clothing, it is not there. It is not performance grade clothing. The zippers often come loose, and the materials aren't great.
It's not high-end merino wool either.
No, exactly. But you're getting what you pay for, pretty much.
Right.
So I know if I pay $20 for a jersey, I'm not getting a great jersey, but it's something I can wear on the trainer, whatever.
Okay.
Now,
cool with
the
that.
stuff I have, and I was telling you this a couple weeks ago in our ride, I have gotten a couple jerseys recently through Amazon that have been Chinese made, and they have been incredible. The fabric on them, the fit on them, they are Rafa race level quality jerseys. The fit is incredible. And I swear by them. I now swear by them. They were $30 to $40, not that big of an investment. I knew I could return it if I didn't like it because it was going through Amazon. Fit perfectly. The AliExpress stuff, everything that comes from China is like you need to order like 4 sizes bigger because
that's true.
Asian American
Asian
different.
sizing is worse than Italian. Yeah.
Amazon was true to size. Everything was great. So that's what I will say about the clothing. You have to be a little careful. You have to realize you're probably getting what you pay for. But if you buy through a more reliable site, bingo.
I mean, you're talking like 20-25% the cost of some other manufacturers that I like. I mean, right?
True. If you compare a short sleeve race jersey like that compared to a Rafa one, you're talking about $100 less probably per jersey.
Yeah. I was just gonna say,
it's worth the risk in my mind. Now, let's talk about frames. Okay, I've bought a few frames. One was a mountain bike frame, a hardtail carbon mountain bike frame. And it was excellent. It was light. It was tough. I flipped that thing end over end. You could not break it. It was indestructible. It was incredible. Okay?
Right.
I also bought a knockoff, and I knew this was a knockoff when I bought it, but the price was too good. A knockoff Cervelo S5. And I have also, as you know, had a legitimate Cervelo S5. So I know exactly what it rides like.
S5 was a knockoff. That was a knockoff, really?
No. The one you know was legitimate.
Right. Okay,
you never knew about the knockoff one, and there's a good reason for that.
I was going to say the white one. I knew. That's a legit one.
The white one was a knockoff. The legit one was the black one with white labeling, but the 2016 one. But and that was one of the best bikes I've ever ridden in my life, hands down. I can't
keep track of your garage of bikes because
it is what it is.
Going all the time.
So I got a knockoff one probably in 2013 to make into a tri-bike, and it had so many problems with just even, attaching the rear derailleur to it. The bottom bracket specs were off. The cabling was totally off. The headset was crap. So you have to be very careful, especially 10 years ago. You had to be very careful on the frames. Nowadays, there are and as you know, I just got a new frame that's on the way from a company called Elves. And if you go onto YouTube, Elves seems to be kind of the Trek of like the Philippines or the South Pacific, like a very well-ridden, well-tested.
We're talking road or what?
Yeah, it's a road bike, but they make all sorts of bikes, carbon bikes. And Cam Nichols on his channel actually did a whole thing. He had like 3 different frames that he tested, had a carbon expert look at, a mechanic look at, and they are awesome. And it's a very aero aggressive road bike, relatively light for $1,300 for the frame. Comes with the headset and the seat post and everything. The bottom bracket even with ceramic bearings.
Now,
the whole
is
deal
this
for
Amazon? Where did you find this?
No, straight through Elves. And they allow you to,
Elves.
for $50, you can custom paint it pretty much any way you want. I actually bought mine as kind of a business marketing expense, and they're custom painting my firm label on it, my firm graphic and everything. Like, they'll do pretty much anything you want.
Crazy.
For $1,300 out the door. It's shipped.
Wow.
So really good deal, and I'm looking forward to that. And everyone, if you check the YouTube videos of that, everyone has been wildly pleased with that. So give or take on the frames, you have to go to reliable dealers. Again, go to your Yolios, go to your Elves, go to, there's Tide Ace is another one that you'll find a lot on eBay. And Tide Ace has a lot of good reviews. Make sure you look at the reviews online and see what other people are thinking, their experiences. Now, look, if you try to buy a knockoff Cervelo S5 carbon aero frame, and they're selling it for $250 through AliExpress, again, you know what you're getting. You have to use some smarts about this. But there's this new tier now where it's like a carbon frame for $1,000 or $1,200. Which, just like the bourbon thing that we were talking about, is kind of in the space of reasonable. It doesn't have that extra branding markup that a lot of the American companies have, but it's not so cheap that you're basically getting crap. So if you look at that mid-range, great. Now, the wheels, I can tell you this. And as someone who has had the highest end wheels, the Zips,
yeah,
and
I've had to.
And I know you had a ton of problem with your Zip hubs.
Yeah, I did.
I can tell you as someone who's had 5 or 6 carbon wheel sets now, incredible. Even going back to 2008, and I've had, again, rim and disc. All of them have been incredible. The latest one that I'm riding on my road bike right now is a Super Team, is the brand. You can find them on Amazon again. For something like $400 for a carbon 40 millimeter deep rim brake road set or wheel set, 1,400 grams, in the neighborhood of 1,400 grams, so light. Sapum C X-ray spokes, so aero high quality spokes, and almost all of these come with either Novatech hubs, which are really good in my experience, or Bitex hub, which are also generally good. But the Novatech hubs I find to be bomb proof. And I'm riding this wheel set right now, and I would take it over the Zips.
So here's a question for you. I'm thinking about upgrading my Salsa Cutthroat rims, which I have. I think it's DT Swiss 1900s on it, because I got to replace the bearings actually next week on it because of mileage. But I've been looking at Hunt. Yeah. So what would a recommendation be? Is there a Chinese? I mean, Hunt's a great. I've had 3 sets of Hunts, and my girlfriend's bike has Hunts, as you know. I think you had a pair of Hunts. Have you? You had one
I never got them.
You never got them. Yeah.
My understanding
lost,
my understanding of what Hunt Wheels does, and maybe this is totally incorrect, but my understanding is they basically do the same thing as the Chinese manufacturer, which is they get the Chinese rims. And then they get the hubs, which are often, I guess, Novatech hubs, or rebranded, but they're Novatech hubs, rebranded as Hunt hubs.
Ceramic or steel, depending on what you want to get. Yep.
Yeah, and then they get the spokes. and they hand build it, which is kind of what you're paying for.
And
But
test
it's
them and
not
everything,
really
yeah.
much different than what I'm getting on
Yeah.
Amazon or from. Now, one of the places that I go to that I've had several good experiences with is called DIY Carbon. You can
Yeah, I've heard of them
Google it,
before.
DIY
Yep.
Carbon,
Yep.
and the guy is very responsive. There is a USA dealer for it, distributor,
So they
and so
build same sort of like Hunt, but they
same
build
thing.
up whatever you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a USA distributor that makes me feel better. And
Right.
there's only a couple different versions that you can get,
Hmm.
but for like $500, you can get a hand built to your specifications carbon wheel set, road wheel set.
So
So
so what would you recommend as an alternative to Hunt for, I want to go wide, what about
yeah,
35 deep and I think I have 24, 25 wide now. So I'd like to get at least a 25 wide or wider internal um for the mountain bike.
if it
And,
were me, I would punch that up what you're looking for on Amazon and see what Amazon has, because at the end of the day, one, they have good prices because they have buying power. Two, like
that's
I
right.
said, you're backed up by this ability to just send it back if you don't like it. If that
Right.
box comes and there's anything that gives you a question mark in your head, send it back. No questions asked with
That's true.
Amazon generally.
That's true.
So and like I said, the disc ones I think are a little bit more expensive, but the road wheel sets that I got through them, tubeless, with nice hubs and SAPM C X-ray spokes, $400.
So
You
let me ask you a
can't go
question.
wrong.
You're still running tubes on some of your wheels, right?
I have a tubed wheel set, but I don't actually use it.
Okay.
I used it on the other road bike that I had that I'm no
Right.
longer. Now, here's the other thing. Going back to this conversation, I brought this up. This right here is a new group set that I bought through AliExpress for my trainer bike,
Didn't you
my
say you
trainer
did
road
go
bike.
through AliExpress? You know what you just said?
Now, so I'm going to talk about that. This is a Sensa Empire
Sense of
group set. I forget if I got the 11 or 12 speed, but they sell both.
I think
And
11, you said.
great reviews online. It's not electronic; it's mechanical.
Right.
But
For
this
the trainer,
was,
you're talking about. For
yeah,
the
just for
trainer.
the trainer. But I bought it through AliExpress because I was stupid, didn't think about it, assumed I could only get it through AliExpress. But when I did a little research, I could have actually gotten it through Amazon. It would have been here in 2 days for the same price, and it was like $200. And supposedly the quality is about 105, Shimano 105 quality,
Right.
but for $200 for a trainer road bike, you can't go wrong. So I will
Right.
test this and let the viewers know what I find out. I'm about to install it on my bike, but
All right.
that's another example of Chinese products, and now they're starting to make more group sets. Really, they
Yep.
weren't making group sets for a while, but
Yep.
now they're making group sets, so I'm going to give it a try. Based on my experience, I've been very, very happy, especially considering the value you're getting for the price.
But you got to talk at least a minute about your carbon Chinese saddle, which
Oh, I love that thing.
I don't know
So
how
all
you
my
can
saddles,
ride that thing.
all my saddles I get on Amazon. There are two versions basically, okay? There's the pure carbon, which is real hard, but it's very light. It's like 25 grams for $50 or less. And I have a couple of those that I put on my mountain bikes because I'm, up and off the saddle on the mountain bike a lot. It doesn't really matter. For my road and gravel bikes where I'm really sitting down a whole bunch, they make a slightly padded version that's just a little bit heavier, maybe 50 grams.
Was that the one you had on last time? I said that's
Yeah.
not bad. It looked like my Airgon, I think.
For $50
That
for
wasn't bad.
super light saddle, I
Right.
think it's definitely less than 100 grams. And I'm kind of a weight weenie. And
Kind
they're
of.
great. I mean, again, on my mountain bike, I've crashed them on rocks. They've been put through the paces. They're no different. Now, the thing is with saddles, it's based on what your rear end likes. Like, I can't speak to everyone, but in terms of reliability and durability, nothing wrong with them whatsoever, and a huge weight advantage.
Cool. So I guess
So-
that sort of wraps up our Chinese conversation for today, right?
Yeah, but the next step now is for you to take my advice and buy some Chinese componentry and then tell viewers your experience to
All
see
right.
if finally I have persuaded you. Have I persuaded you?
We shall see.
Okay.
I'll have to sleep on that.
That doesn't sound very reassuring.
A sip on that.
Okay. All right. The last topic for today, we're getting into our business segment now. We're going to talk about domestic oil production, which I know doesn't sound very exciting. But look, we're all experiencing this crazy inflation right now. It's killing our budgets. The gas prices aren't everything. They aren't the end all be all of inflation. They aren't the sole cause of inflation. But if you think about it, think about gas, what we use gas for, right? Our regular transportation to and from work or vacation. If you're flying anywhere, that gets accounted in the prices. Transportation of goods, the trucks running back and forth using fuel. The production of pretty much everything we make is reliant on fuel. And so as fuel prices go up, the price of everything goes up.
I mean, trucking's a big part of that too. I mean,
Huge.
Freaking truck these days.
Well, if you think about a product, one, the product itself, the price of it has to be more expensive because it's more expensive to produce. And the transportation of it, the delivery to the store for you is more expensive.
No, you're
so
right.
think about all that added cost.
There's a lot of stuff made out of petroleum products. It's not just
Sure.
the gas. So
Sure.
a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly.
So
Exactly. So
plastics, all that kind of stuff is petroleum based.
So the more expensive fuel is, the more expensive everything's going to be. Now, under the last administration that we had, I won't mention any names, but we were more or less effectively fuel independent, gas independent, oil independent, right?
Right.
We produced much of what we had. We had surplus to sell to the rest of the world. Gas prices were $2 or less. We weren't seeing this crazy level of inflation in our goods, and everything was great. However, the new administration put a lock on a lot of the exploration and the development of domestic oil and energy production. And so now we find ourselves in a position where, one, we're reliant on our enemies, and currently we're more or less in two wars with oil producing areas of the world, right? And so now we're reliant on our enemies to give us fuel. We've greatly already used our domestic reserves, which is, from a national security perspective, is incredibly dangerous. Should we actually get directly into war, that's really what those reserves are for, and they are depleted right now.
Right.
So it's a national security issue. And gas, we see it's come down a little recently. I don't know, the last gas prices in this area that I saw were maybe around $3.50, but they have been as high as about $4.50 or $5 in some areas. California,
they just dropped last week by 30, 40 cents, which is crazy. And then it'll go right back for Thanksgiving.
Well, pretty much
jump right back up.
And we're at the mercy of the rest of the world. At any time they want, all they have to do is say we're cutting production, and that gas price goes through the roof, and the price of goods goes through the roof.
Yep.
And so, what is the answer? Of course, we don't have endless oil, no matter what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great to drill more domestically and produce more domestically. And I think that's what we have to do in the short term. But we have to find alternative fuel sources. And, the current administration is huge on these EV vehicles, which I think is a total sham. First, the carbon footprint of these things is huge and is greater than just the domestic oil production in the regular car itself.
I mean, there's challenges with the electric, and there's challenges with electric bikes. I get passed by more electric bikes on the C&O these days than I do a regular bike, doing 25, 30 miles an hour, almost running me off the trail anymore. But, and don't get me wrong, I think it's great if people can get out on an electric bike, but follow some guidelines when they're riding,
That has to be another topic for another day, because I have my own opinion on that.
Oh, geez.
So you think even the lithium ion batteries, have you ever looked at one of these lithium mines? Basically, these people are like enslaved
you got
labor.
nickel, you got copper, all these things are required to make chargers and batteries and everything.
Yes.
And there's not enough out there right now. And
environmentally, it's horrible. And so, personally, I have one of our vehicles is a hybrid vehicle, which I think is the best of all worlds. It takes regular gas, so I don't pay premium gas prices. It doesn't require charging. It's just the electric comes from braking like a Prius would. And it gets 40 to 50 miles per gallon depending on your driving habits. I think that's really the way of the
I
world.
think that's the next step, because I was talking with our BMW group, and they said next year they're going to be all hybrids. They're going to stop gas production to BMWs, so in the U.S. and around the world. So I think a lot of other companies are going to follow that. They're going to ease people into it to say, here's the first step. I mean, I'd be the last to hop on the electric bandwagon because I like the sound and the roar of my gas-powered engine, but eventually it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a different technology than EV though, because I'm looking at my neighbors' houses right now, and a lot of them had 1 or 2 Teslas sitting in the garage, and they've since sold them off because they can't stand the fact that they have to recharge on a road trip and sit there for whatever it is, an hour or so, and wait for it to recharge, and it's just not efficient, and charging every night and everything. I think you're going to find a different technology, whether it's hydrogen or something like that, and in the meantime using these hybrid vehicles. But you can see, I think I sent you an article, the EV sales are slumped. No one's buying these things, and they're just sitting on the lots. So
everything's slumped these days.
Well, that's true.
What's going on? Yeah,
that's it. So good conversation, Blaise. Why don't you tell everyone what's up next on next week's show?
Before I do that, I just want to make a note. I saw something this morning. GCN Plus in North America just announced this morning they're cutting off the app. I think it's like $35 a month. I've had it for 2-3 years, which allows me to watch all the races in Europe around the world all year round. I found out GCN Plus, they said, is owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers made this decision. It wasn't the people that run the show or anything. They're still going to have GCN, and GCN Plus is still live in Europe, but the American market is ending December 19th, and they said stand by because they'll probably relaunch it. So my takeaway was Warner Brothers wants to make more money, probably on that app. Instead of $35 to let me see all the national bike races, I'm sure it'll be $99.95 or more come January. But, so that's something I just saw.
I'm an avid cyclist, but I don't watch cycling. I will watch the Tour de France sometimes if I catch a.
That's the biggie, and the Giro.
If I catch a stage or two, but kind of ever since kids came along, I'm out of time to sit there for 3 hours watching a road race. So I do like watching GCN though on YouTube, and I'm glad that's sticking around. So.
He said they made like 200 some movies in the last couple of years too, and there's a couple good ones in there you can watch. But anyway, so next week we got coming why we drink bourbon. 2, what are your top bike brands and what we like about them or dislike about them? I guess top brands, who are our favorites. And there's a lot of reasons behind that for me because I've been riding for a while. I'm sure you too. And then the shift in corporate America to self-employed. I've seen this huge shift with my clients the last 3-4 years. People are bailing corporate America. So join us next week for those topics and more and see what we're pouring. And maybe I'll have my bottles. Probably not because I'll be in Massachusetts and maybe they'll be in Maryland. Maybe not. But
yeah, I don't know about that one. I'll cross my fingers for you, and I'll be the first one on that site, like I said, if it actually comes through. And maybe Woody the Cat will join us for next week's episode also. Who knows?
And maybe we'll be on Apple Podcasts because it takes a couple weeks, I found out, to get on Apple Podcasts. But I'm hoping this week we'll be on there going for it, and you'll see our first 2 podcasts. But we're on everything else. Look, Amazon, Spotify are easy to find us right now. We're live on episode 2, and we'll be here shortly for next week. So great to see everybody. Follow
great
us.
to see you, Blaise. And remember, everyone, please like and share if you can. That will really help us with the channel. And please put in your comments what you'd like to see us cover, what you'd like to hear us talk about, and that will really help out the show grow as well.
Right. And if we don't chat, we'll see you right before Thanksgiving. So we've got one more week coming up.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
I'm ready for turkey. I'm ready for turkey. Yeah. All right. Have a great week.
See you later, Hank. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.